Okay, so we're here for part 4 of the scripting your success uh, process, theory, whatever you want to call it. This one is going to focus on, it's going to be a little bit shorter, but it's going to focus on the major scenes. So something that we talked about in one of our previous videos was the idea of storyboarding. And I think that's a very valuable process. I think you want to have a game plan, and you want to plan out those major scenes, those times when the big impacts, the big things that are going to happen in your journey on your way to your goal are actually going to occur. I think that there's a couple things about need to be a little nuanced in that process as you're moving forward. So this is going to focus on generally the major scenes. This video is, and there are highs and lows that come along a hero's journey, which is a concept Joseph Campbell had. We're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail when we focus in on some of the archetypes that are going to be in our life as our supporting cast. But if you understand there's going to be that ebb and flow, there's going to be the ocean current that goes up and down, the highs and lows, then you can also plan on how to handle the highs and handle the lows, because that's something that if you're not prepared for, they can knock you on your hind end and you'll not be ready for it. So one thing I think that we need to know is, we're going to, at this point in the journey, we've planned out, we've directed, we've produced, we're ready to roll. We're getting close to ready to roll, hit action on camera. And we're looking at the major scenes. And as we're kind of storyboarding those and getting an idea of how those milestones that we're going to hit, that's kind of what a major scene is a milestone. If it's weightlifting, it's whenever you hit a certain personal best, or when you were able to, run for 4 miles straight on the treadmill without, feeling like your heart's going to explode, which I don't know how anybody can never get there, but it's an idea. But the point is, whatever your milestones are, that are kind of tangible ways of seeing success on the way to your end goal, your final objective. One thing we need to do is we need to know when to call scene. A director will let the camera roll, they'll let actors do what they're going to do, and then, sometimes they'll deviate from the script, or sometimes they're going to do the script, or sometimes they'll just let the scene last a little bit longer than you would maybe have expected it to, because they see something that's going to create a mood or kind of an atmosphere that's, going to be good for a scene. And then also they know when sometimes it's just better to cut, because there's some of the dialogue that they initially had planned, or some of the action they had initially planned just isn't going to work out. And practically, because, we're kind of trying to relate the idea of making a movie to real life experience, sometimes you just need to know it's time to walk away. However, you need to be clear that, I want to be clear, that's your decision to make. That's not anyone else's decision to make. Certainly your supporting cast, your support group, your support system, your mentors, your significant others, whoever's there with you, they can play a role, and they can say, hey, this just doesn't seem to be positive anymore. This doesn't seem to be healthy. This seems to be a toxic thing. This relationship's toxic. This what you're doing, this practice you're doing, the ways that you're trying to accomplish your goal aren't really the most healthy ways to get there, and I think you could do better if you're going to do it another way. But it's your decision to make, because in the end, they can only see what they can see, and you know what value it's going to give to you. Now, this takes a lot of critical self-thought and trying to be as unbiased as possible, which is hard because it's you doing it, but you know all the details better than anyone else of what you're going through, so you should be the one who is making that decision. Related to that, you also need to be the one who says, no, we're going to actually let this continue to go forward. You have to be the one that makes that decision. There's a quote from Captain America Civil War. It's, another character gives it, but in the comic books, it's actually Captain America who gives the quote, but it's Sharon Carter, and she's giving a eulogy for Peggy Carter, who's Captain America's love interest in the first movie. I won't get into all the details of that, but essentially, this is her, Peggy Carter's niece, I think. Yeah. And she says, compromise where you can. Where you can't, don't. Even if everyone is telling you that something wrong is something right, even if the whole world is telling you to move, it is your duty to plant yourself like a tree, look them in the eye, and say, no, you move. And that is what you have to do. You have to be willing to just make that decision and stick with it yourself. If you're going to say, no, this is done, stick with it. Don't half-ass a decision. Commit to it. Say, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to go forward, and then do it. It's your decision to make. Second, something you need to understand is sometimes those supporting characters, and we're going to get into more detail, like I said, about those kind of roles in some of the next videos. But those supporting characters can improvise, or you can improvise and take a scene in a completely different direction than what it was originally intended to be, and it can be even better. And really, it's kind of a go with the flow thing, but it's also looking at the situation because we're making our roadmap up front, we're making our storyboard, we're making our plans. We don't fully know. We can do all of our research, but until we actually get into it, we don't really know. There's kind of like an old wrestling and boxing thing. Until you actually get hit in the mouth, until you actually get into the fight, you really don't know how you're going to respond to it. So be ready to course correct, improvise, if necessary. And I just want to point out some of the best scenes in cinema history had at least some element of improvisation. The stories kind of grow as time goes on. But the jewelry box close, whenever Julia Roberts does the famous laugh in Pretty Woman, that was improvised by Richard Gere. Got to say that right. Willy Wonka's limp, and then the somersault entrance that is so iconic, improvised. And in Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. Apparently, that was actually improvised multiple times. Roy Scheider was looking to put that in, and then the one where he's sitting there chumming the water, and we see Jaws appear, and he just turns and says, "We're going to need a bigger boat." So these are some of the most influential scenes in all of cinema history, and they were created because the creators, the director, the actor, the director was willing to look at the actor and let them kind of make their own thing happen. I watched an interview with Jeff Goldblum the other day where he was saying the scene in Jurassic Park whenever he starts using the flare and running away was actually him thinking about his character and just saying, I don't think I would do this. I think my guy would kind of try to save everybody and be a hero. I don't think he would run away because originally he was scripted to kind of run away like the lawyer did. And Spielberg, being a good director, thought about it and then let him improvise, and it made for an even better scene because that really does fit the character. He's kind of a blowhard. He's kind of about himself. He's he's a pretty selfish character, but he's doing like his bravado is based on the fact that he wants to be seen in that way. And it also gives a very good contrast to Sam Neill's character in that movie. I love Jurassic Park, so I can nerd out about it. Sam Neill's character was just doing it to save the kids, just to save them, because it's just he knows that's probably the only way to do it. And then if Malcolm would have just let him do it, Jeff Goldblum's character, maybe it would have worked out better for everybody. But instead, he has to do it kind of to get his own thing going, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. But anyway, it makes for a better scene. One thing that I want to note is you need to be careful not to let those supporting characters scene still your movie, and you should be the primary focus. There's nothing wrong with on your journey if someone says, let's use the metaphor of you're playing guitar, you're learning to play guitar, and somebody says, I'm pretty good at guitar. How about you and I play together? And then they actually have the idea that maybe you play some shows with them. If your goal was to become a guitarist so that you could then pursue your own music, you're going to grow, you're going to learn from being a part of their band, from being a part of their shows, from playing with them. But you can't let that consume your goal. Maybe that is actually just a step on the way of learning how to be a better player yourself. The final thing I want to bring up here, I said this one's going to be a shorter kind of video, is cutting scenes. This is a little bit different than knowing when to call scene. Knowing when to call scene, you're in the midst of it and you just say, okay, this is it, time's up. Cutting scenes is just, when we make these storyboards at the very beginning, we have these ideas of these milestones we're going to get to. And as we're going, maybe we realize, and again, that's kind of what I'm saying, you want to have, it's a fluid thing. You want to have your goal. You want to have your straight line of where you're going to go. But as you're going, life doesn't move in a straight line. It goes up and down all these different ways. Generally, you want to keep going forward. But maybe, your destination's here on the map, and as you're going, you realize, actually, it should have been like right here. And if that's the case, the scenes that were going to get you here may need to be cut, and new scenes need to be put in so you can go that way. And that's all I'm saying. It's just having that willingness to change what needs to be changed. So that's kind of the end of the directing aspect. We're going to get into, well, I guess it's not the end of it's the directing aspect in so much as being a director. The rest of it's kind of like directing and making choices that also a director and a producer would make about casting and supporting characters and filling out those roles. Those are going to be the next few videos. So looking forward to those. I'm excited about it. If you want to reach out, if you want to talk to me about anything, I'm on all the different social medias. Just send me a message. I'm happy to discuss anything and to help you kind of go down the path of, following your goal and scripting your success. Thanks.